with Scott Allen.
Hello, I am your host, Scott Allen, and this is Phronesis, Practical Wisdom for Leaders. If the topic is leadership, I'm in. I've spent more than 20 years in the field teaching, learning, writing, and questioning. When I'm not working on Phronesis, I travel, delivering keynotes, working with individuals and teams, and helping people from organizations across industries become better leaders. Want to learn more? Visit me at scottjallen.net. Phronesis offers a smart, fast-paced discussion about all things leadership. We explore relevant topics and incorporate practical tips to help you make a difference in how you lead and live. Listen Notes lists Phronesis in the top 3% of podcasts worldwide. Phronesis is the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. ILA brings together those who teach, study, and develop leadership, advancing leadership knowledge and practice for a better world. Learn more at ila-net.org. Finally, if you enjoy Phronesis, please subscribe to stay current on our weekly episodes. If you find an episode that resonates, please share it with your colleagues and friends. And if you want more content, subscribe to my newsletter, The Leader's Edge. The link is in the show notes. As always, thanks for listening. And now, here's today's show. Okay, everybody, I have a return guest today, Joe Hart. Joe is the CEO of Dale Carnegie, and the last time you were on, I'm going to put, of course, your bio in the show notes so people can, you're an old friend at this point, but you were actually leaving for a retreat because you were working on a book. And now the book has been published, and I have spent the last week with you listening to, as I was saying before we got on the air, listening to the audiobook. And I've just fallen in love when the author of the book is reading their book. And so, as I said before we started, thank you very, very much for taking the time to do that, because it just means so much when you're actually hearing the voice of the author. But that was probably no small task, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you for enduring 8 hours of me. And now, did you listen to it at like 1.5 or 2 speed?
No,
or something?
it was the real deal the whole way through.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. It was no, I mean, it's funny because I had in my mind that it would be probably a challenge to do an audiobook, but until I actually got into the studio, I didn't realize, I'm standing up to record because I want to channel the energy and that type of thing. And, I'd start and I'd just have all kinds of energy. And over time, I'm like, gosh, my throat's getting a little sore. Or I'd be like, blah, 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 and so it was about 20 hours of recording, but it was a lot of fun. And I felt like if someone's going to read the book, it may as well be me. I co-authored it with my friend Michael Crom, and so I really was into it, and it was a lot of fun doing it. A real honor to be able to do it too.
I'd love to talk about a couple 30,000 foot level topics here. First, the title. I just love the title, and I've been reflecting on that and kind of coming back to that over and over and over, because it just beautifully captures the spirit of what you're communicating. Take command. I mean, would you talk a little bit about where that came from? Because I think it's a mindset, and it's a beautiful mindset. Take command. You own this. You're driving. Go.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's exactly, and you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. One of the things that we focus on in Dale Carnegie programs, if you take a Dale Carnegie course, we talk about intentionality. One of the challenges a lot of people have is it's so easy to get wrapped up in our day-to-day or week-to-week or to-do list, and all of a sudden, days, weeks, months, years have gone by, and we're like, oh my gosh, where'd all the time go? And so, we really emphasize the importance of being intentional in what we do, in what we think, what we say, in the relationships, how we're going to handle relationships. So take command is really about being intentional. And, and the construct of the book is really around, take command of your thoughts and your emotions. First, you got to take command of yourself, because, Dale Carnegie once said, Scott, that the biggest challenge he had was the management of Dale Carnegie. And I'd say the same thing. The biggest challenge I have is managing myself and my thoughts. And take command really felt like the right title. Take command of your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, and your future.
Yes. Well, and another theme kind of running throughout, at least what I took from it, was that you are speaking to a younger generation. We have stories about younger individuals around the world. I mean, I also loved the global perspective to this. It wasn't just younger people making a difference in one spot. It's literally all over the world. And I mean, I have to imagine some of that came from that global network of Dale Carnegie, which is incredible, but it's speaking to that younger generation. And I can just very, very easily envision using this in a class because there's these timeless principles that the students need to hear, but then it's speaking to a certain age group. Not that it can't speak to any age group, it spoke to me, and it contains the message in a really nice way. But I think that was another theme I noticed. Was that something intentional in the work?
100%. We hoped that the book could benefit anyone who read it or listened to it.
Yep.
And at the same time, we were thinking about Dale Carnegie principles. And frankly, Michael and I were talking even during the pandemic just about just all the struggles that the world was going through, that I was going through, just leading a global company. And these principles that Dale Carnegie had developed over years and are contained in How to Win Friends and Influence People, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, two of the most successful books of all time, impacting just millions and millions of people, tens of millions of people. And, we thought to ourselves, how do we get these brilliant ideas? How do we build on these to a younger group of people, a younger audience who may not have the benefit of being familiar with them? You and I have lived a certain number of years. We have the value of perspective. We can look back at things. The younger audience can't. So how do we shortcut or save them, what could be a lot of years of learning and frustration, and just really give them these jewels of Dale Carnegie with, as you said, stories of diverse people from all around the world. My co-author, Michael Crom, had interviewed about 100 Forbes 30 under 30 people from all over the world. I had interviewed people on our Dale Carnegie Take Command podcast and also people on our Dale Carnegie program. So we had this broad base of people. And so much of the book, we really wanted the book to be about stories. We wanted it to be an easy book for people to read. It's something that we hope flows really well for people. But you're right, Scott, 100%. We were hoping to reach a younger audience.
Yeah, I mean, you have contemporary authors that you're referring to, you have CNN heroes, you have just individuals that are making a difference that really nicely model what it is that you're communicating. And so one of my favorite quotes, and it aligns nicely with something you said a few moments ago, but Bill George said that the hardest person you'll ever lead is yourself. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier. I mean, that taking command of your thoughts and emotions.
That's right.
It's the starting point. Talk a little bit about that. And again, you have some beautiful stories in the context of the book. We talked a little bit about it last time. Even in those early days of the pandemic, as you're leading this global corporation, you had this moment where you had to take command of your own thoughts and emotions as you were thinking about leading the organization. If I remember correctly, it was a late night and you opened up a book.
I did. Yeah. No, I mean, if you think about your life, my life, really all of our lives, we wake up in the morning and our minds start going. Sometimes our minds are going while we sleep. That was the experience that I had during COVID. I woke up at, every night at 3:00 in the morning, and my mind was just going to all of these really bad places this is the early stages in our entire business around the world. Global business was shutting down. And, it's terrifying when you see that something you just didn't ever anticipate happening. In those moments, I found myself really in just dark places, thinking about the worst possible things. And then I picked up one night Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And one of the things he talked about is he said, the value of our thoughts. If I know what your thoughts are, I know who you are. And he had this quote that has really stayed with me. It's from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, which is, our lives are what our thoughts make it, right? So our lives are what our thoughts make it. If I'm focused on all the things that are going to go wrong, or why I'm a victim, or why this isn't going to work, then that's what I'm going to get. And on the other hand, if I'm thinking about how do I make this situation better, what can I do? If it is to be, it is up to me, so to speak. That's going to lead to a whole series of different results. And so I started, back to your first comment about take command. I said, geez, I got to really start taking command of my thoughts. Yeah. And I did, and really turned things around for myself. and started to think about where are the opportunities here? Really, where are the things that I can do and we can do? And frankly, our company today is stronger, it's more resilient, more agile. We've been growing. It's been really exciting. And that's a testament to our Dale Carnegie people all over the world who embraced change and really were very creative in the face of great difficulty. But it does start with our taking command of our thoughts.
Yep. And I love the phrasing, just choose your thoughts. Again, you own this. Condition your mind. You own this. Work with your emotions. You own this. What I'd love to, and let's stick a little bit on this theme of individuals who may not be feeling confident. It's build your confidence. Why is this so core to this first part? How do you think about that? Build your confidence. Again, I love the phrasing in that because I have ownership in that. I can do that, right?
That's right. And the titles of these chapters are very deliberate. They're active verb titles. There's a progression in the first part. So that, as we kind of mentioned, this whole first part is take command of your thoughts and emotions. And once you've taken command of yourself, then it's take command of your relationships, because in life, so much of our happiness or unhappiness depends on the quality of our connections to other people, our bosses or spouses or significant others, whatever the case might be. And then once you've done that, hey, what's your future? What's the vision you have for yourself? But going back to that first part, even within that, the very first part of it is, you got to pay attention to your thoughts, because I think so many of us, if I'm not thinking, I could go through my Twitter feed and get pretty angry about a lot of things, or have a lot of different thoughts going through my mind. But it's like, well, wait, time out. What am I thinking here? What are the assumptions I'm making? And,
Yep.
Or you get an email, someone says something in a meeting, something rubs you the wrong way. We think someone is trying to hurt us or whatever. And it's like, hold on a second. What is that thought? So there's this progression in this first chapter about first, just start to develop the habit of paying attention to your thoughts and learning how to flip them to something that is going from maybe negative to something that's more constructive. But it's not enough to do that just once. You really have to condition your mind for success. If you and I, went to the gym, we're not going to go one time and do a set of bicep curls and be done. We're going to want to do that over and over and over until we build the muscle.
Yes.
And then that second chapter really goes to mindset. So then it becomes automatic. So that I'm living my life, and it's just so much easier for me to confront or deal with all the situations that might come up in my life. We also have emotions. So we want to encourage people how to take command of their emotions. I've got my thoughts, and then I've got my emotions, and how those two things interplay, is really complex. But if we can befriend our emotions, understand how our emotions are serving us. So all of this then leads to your question. And your question was really about confidence. Then we start to get into, building your confidence and building resilience and dealing with regret and dealing with stress. But, the culmination of all of this is we want to help people be strong, confident, resilient. You deal with an adversity and you can get through it, whatever that means. I mean, we've got people listening to your podcast right now. It's like, think about a time in your life right now that you're struggling with, or that it causes you anger or frustration. The sooner you can equip yourself to manage that and move beyond it, that opens up incredible opportunity. But until you do that, it's just like having ankle weights, or someone is grabbing your ankle, holding you back. So the goal is to get to the point where people are just resilient and strong and confident. And I can't give what I don't have. So if I'm going to go into relationship with people, I want to bring the best of myself that I can.
I think that's a great phrasing. My friend Jonathan Reams, who's at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, he phrases it kind of like this: before you can grow up, you have to clean up. And, are you in a good spot before you start to extend yourself to others, build relationships? And if you're building relationships from that place of strength, your shop's in order, so to speak. I mean, obviously, we don't want to encourage listeners to not build relationships until they feel they're perfectly fixed, right? That's not a thing. Right. But yes, have you done some of that inner work and taken command of self, taken command of your own thoughts and emotions, and built that foundation, so to speak? And then there was a chapter that just really resonated for me. And I've never heard an author confront this the way that you did, which I just very, very much appreciated, which I think was this whole thing around in the taking command of your relationships. Really, are we connected? Are they trustworthy relationships? And, we are going to come across difficult people. And that is a thing that's going to be happening. And are we surrounding ourselves with people when possible? Obviously, it's not always possible, but are we surrounding ourselves with people who help us be the best version of ourselves, right?
Yeah, that chapter is a really important one because we all deal with difficult people. And the normal thing that many of us do is we just blame the other person. We're critical. We've got every excuse in the world about why this person is a lousy person. But part of what we talk about in the book, by the way, one thing we talk about in the book is that we may not see ourselves as the difficult person, but we may be that difficult person for somebody else. So let's be reflective and introspective and understand kind of what our role might be in that relationship. But the other thing is that often it's less about the other person we perceive as difficult, and it's more about us. It's more about how we handle the situation. And here's an example. So let's say, I'm talking to my boss, and my boss comes and says, Joe, I need you to work later. I need you to get this done. And I say, fine. But then I grumble. I say, gosh, here he comes again. He's asking me to do this again. I've got so many things on my plate. And it's like, well, time out. Did you talk to him? Did you let him know where you are? Did you know that this is going to, or did you decide you wanted to be a martyr? So we encourage people to think about how they are engaging difficult people. Sometimes we can have a conversation, and I think you can almost say anything to someone if you know how to say it, if you know how to approach it, if you can approach it in a friendly way or professional way. Often we make assumptions about other people that are just wrong. So that's part of it. But there's also, Scott, as you said, that point that there are some people who should not be in our lives. There are some people who are toxic. There are some times where we're going to do everything we can. And at the end of the day, we might want to say, you know what? This is not about boundaries anymore. This is just a person I need to cut out of my life.
There's a really pointed stance that you take there, which I think is valuable because, to your point, I think people have individuals in their lives, or they're in situations where they haven't taken command, they haven't had the difficult conversation, or when they have set up the boundaries and the boundaries have continually been broken, they continue to put up with it. And to your point, there may be times when it's not going to be a thriving relationship on either end, and let's move on.
I think there's a progression, right? So which is, number one, do you have boundaries in a relationship? Sometimes people treat us only how we allow ourselves to be treated. We've got some stories in the book, about Michael, my co-author, who was dealing with someone who was just very difficult. And until Michael set boundaries that said, if you cross this line, we're done. But that changed the dynamic. But do you have boundaries? Do you communicate boundaries? And if the person doesn't respect the boundaries, or that's a different situation, and there are some people in some situations where, we should never allow ourselves to be treated a certain way. We should never to be engaged with people who would behave in a way that harms us.
Another component of this taking command of your relationships that I really enjoyed was this notion of ditching criticism. As I was listening to that section, I was thinking about, okay, well, here he is. He's writing a book. There's someone online has written something at this point. Right? Someone on Amazon. You can just go look at my Amazon books and, you figure out pretty quickly how people feel. But I think that's such an important message, especially in today's world where literally anyone from anywhere in the world can impact your thoughts, going back to take command of your thoughts, right? So ditching that criticism and standing on your own 2 feet, and it kind of, in my mind, preps us for section 3. But I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that whole ditching criticism, because, that's a big one.
It's a big one, and it's a hard one for most of us. No one really likes to be criticized. And so that chapter deals with 2 things, which is how to give criticism. And we talk about the importance of giving feedback, which is different than criticism. And then how do you receive criticism? And what kind of criticism really should I even pay attention to?
Yes.
Because, not all criticism is created equal, so to speak. There are people that we respect, and there are people that we don't. And there is criticism that is helpful to us and is given to us from someone who cares about us and is trying to help us grow. And then there's someone, I mean, look, we have to own the fact that there are mean, destructive, troubled people out there and who bring their stuff into a relationship, into work, into an online post and whatever. And it's exactly as you said, though, Scott, we decide then how much energy we're going to allow that to have. So that chapter really gives one of my favorite stories in that chapter is about an artist in Canada whose name is Callan Schaub, who has made this very creative. He's got this approach to painting, which many people will look at it. It's like kind of this rainbow art. He'll throw paint on the canvas and so forth, and people would say, "This isn't art. This is fake art." He's horribly trolled online, and that hasn't deterred him. He has, in fact, acquired the domain, I guess, fakeart.com and has posted his stuff there and has taken some of literally the posts that people have had these brutal posts, and he's turned those posts into art, You got to imagine he's got a good sense of humor about things, but you can imagine too how he lives in his emotional health and mental health versus if he let those things get under his skin. The reality is that it doesn't matter who we are, how nice we are, how good we are, we think we are. Some people are not going to like us, and we're just going to have to deal with that.
Well, and you use this word, you've used it in the conversation so far today, and people who listen to the podcast know that this is just one of my absolute favorite words. Curiosity is one of my favorite words, but then intentionality is one of my favorite words as well. And as we move into this third section, we start talking about living that intentional life. Again, taking command of your future. And I've used the phrase earlier, driving. You're driving and you're taking command of your future and setting the course, so to speak, with intention, which I just love.
Yeah, thank you. It's something that maybe this is the wrong way to put it, but we need to be intentional about being intentional. And what I mean is that
was very meta, Joe.
Yeah, I know. That's a deep thought for today, I suppose. Our lives are so busy. 9 out of 10 people, I think, if you said, "How are you?" they'd say, "I'm busy. I'm so busy. I got so much going on." And they do. They got a lot of things going on. And so then what happens is we find ourselves going from thing to thing because it's on our calendar. Someone put something in our calendar, or I've got this responsibility, or I'm just really exhausted. I'm going to sit down on the sofa. I'm going to do this. And that's all fine. But then, like I said earlier in our discussion, months can go by, years can go by. Often people who are on their deathbeds are asked about what they would have done differently. And they say, gosh, I wish I had taken more chances. I wish I'd never really did the things I wanted to do. And then it's too late. And so this chapter, this part of Take Command is about getting people to think about what's the vision you have for yourself? What are your values? What are the things that are important? What's your purpose? And what are the things you really want to accomplish? And set those things out and go get them. Because this third part of the book is about living the life that you want and not somebody else's life, not, having that just your life kind of go by, but what do you want? And we have so many inspiring people in that part. I think it's one of the most inspiring parts of the book are all of these stories about people who have made or are making just an incredible difference in the lives of other people, in the lives of the world. And some, Scott, are big. We have Daniela Fernandez, who at 19 was just so passionate about the oceans, and she ultimately started what has become the largest sustainable ocean alliance in the world. Mm-hmm. And she's under 30. So you've got big things like that. And then you've got little things. I talk about a very personal story about my father, a recovering alcoholic who went 51 years without a drink of alcohol and who spent all of those years in AA, supporting other people, being a sponsor, just trying to save people, and because it's who he was. So those are day-to-day kinds of things. There are big things, but what's the impact that we want to have?
Well, I loved that part of the book, and it was such a really, really touching story. What was it that he told you he was going to kind of community meetings?
Township. As a kid, he'd say he was going to township meetings. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't realize that all the dads in town were so civically minded. I guess it's just my citizen responsibility when I get older is to go to township meetings. And I actually had at one point I thought about going into politics, I think, because it's just I kept seeing that. But when I got older and he told me that the township meetings were really AA. I didn't mind because I understood that it was a complex thing to talk to a kid about. But I'm very proud of him and what he did, because 51 years without a drink he was kind of a local hero in that AA chapter.
Yeah. And I think it's such a beautiful way of serving your community. And they were township meetings, just maybe not how you were thinking of a township meeting. This was during the pandemic, and one night we were having dinner with my family, and these three P's just kind of popped into my head. I looked at the kids and I said, life is kind of about the people, the place, and the purpose. Are you surrounding yourself with people that help you thrive? And are you in a place, in an environment that can help you be the best version of you? And have you figured out why you're here and what difference you want to make in the world? And to your point, it could be something that is on a local scale. It could be something that is international. But I do think at times, I wonder if that's where there's a lot of challenge in the world, is when people aren't able, haven't taken command, and in some instances, they're in situations where they have very little power to live into that purpose, live into who they're intended to be, being able to give that gift to the world and thrive in that way.
It's true. I think that does happen. People might not think about it, the truth is, so many people, all of us are we're providing for ourselves, we're providing for our families, and those are all noble and important and critical things to do. So, you think about Maslow's hierarchy, we talk about self-actualization. Some of us, it's hard to get there when we're taking care of the bills and taking care of our kids and taking care of all the other things that are going on. And part of what this part of the book and Take Command is about is it no matter what you have going on or where you are, this is your life right now. So here are some suggestions and some ways that you can carve out some time, even in the small parts of your day, to be intentional so that you can live the life that you want. Because, sometimes if you don't do that, you get years into your life and you get bitter and resentful and upset that you were dragged or pulled in all these different things. And yet you haven't done the things that were really important to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe, is there any other point from the book or something that you would just like to really bold or underline that you would like listeners to walk away with as they reflect on our conversation and click that link to purchase Take Command? Is there anything else that comes to mind that we haven't touched on that you want people to know about?
The one thing I'd say is, my dad always talked about how life is great. Dale Carnegie said this. Dale Carnegie talked about, this is your life, go out and live it with gusto and so forth. And I think we've kind of talked about this, but my encouragement would be just remember how awesome life is. Life every single day is an opportunity if we've got the right mindset. Even amidst struggle and the rough things that can happen in life, there is an opportunity for joy. I would encourage people to think that. And if it's hard to think that, I would hope that the book is something that can help you get there. Our desire, Michael's and my desire, was to really connect people to Dale Carnegie principles that have helped us, and for this to be a blueprint so that if people read the book, they listen to the book, and they say, wow, it was really a great book, I'll give it 5 stars. That's great. We appreciate it. But if it doesn't cause people to change or do something differently, then from our standpoint, it's been a failure. We really want to help impact people. And I would also say, Scott, that thing that started this Take Command, inspired Take Command, inspired me, inspired Michael, is Dale Carnegie. I took a Dale Carnegie course as a young man, and it just changed the entire direction of my life. Michael, The same thing. And so many people around the world who I've talked to who will say, I took a Dale Carnegie program as a teen, I took it as a young adult, I took it whenever, or I read How to Win Friends. This stuff is among the most valuable stuff that I've ever experienced in my life. So I hope that Take Command will inspire others to go read about Dale or take a Dale Carnegie course or experience this, because it can help you live the life that you want.
Well, how many years in a row has it been on the bestseller list?
We're in our 87th year of bestseller list. In fact, I looked the other day, in the category, because I'm looking on, what are the best sellers and so forth. And in the category, I think of self-improvement, this is still the number one book right now. So, you ask yourself, Scott, like, what is it that makes a book a bestseller for 87 years? It's insane.
It's some, I almost swore, but it's some timeless stuff.
Yeah, it is timeless. It's enduring. It's impactful, and I think it's certainly helped me, and I'm grateful for it. I have a great debt for what I've received.
Well, Joe, you said something that really resonated for me also, because I posted a couple days. I don't know, it may have been like 5 years ago. I was walking to the classroom, and there was a young woman who was walking in with me, and I said, "So how you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm here." And that comment, for some reason, sparked a question in my head, which was, well, what are the odds of us being here? So I got into the classroom a little bit early, and I did this quick little Google search of, what are the odds of us being here as human beings? And I came across this infographic, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I have not done the mathematics, so I can't tell you that this is factually true, listeners and Joe. But at the end of this infographic, after going through all kinds of different things like sperm meeting egg and just any number of other iterations of content, the likelihood of your parents meeting, et cetera, the conclusion was it's as if 2 million people were rolling a 3 trillion sided die and they all got the same number.
Wow.
Those are the odds. Those are the odds of us being here. So I posted that on LinkedIn the other day, and I said, we've won the lottery. Go do something good with it. Go do something good with it. Right?
Well, this is pretty cool then. I mean, what are the odds of you and I having this conversation right now? That's pretty remarkable.
It's as if 4 million people were,
That's awesome.
Yes. I mean, we're here, and we've won the lottery.
But then again, I do think such a big part of this is mindset. When you have the mindset that you have and that you're talking about, then you can see that as positivity, and somebody else might be like, well, I'm here, and it's like I'm just getting through things. And that's not to take away from the really hard times that people have. I have tremendous empathy for that and want to help people with that. It's part of the reason we have to take command in Dale Carnegie, is to help people discover their greatness and have breakthroughs in their lives. But there's no reason that we can't find the joy around us, whether it's in the people or the opportunities or in 1,001 different things. So.
Yeah. Well, listeners, I would encourage you to download the Audible, to purchase the book, give it as a gift, and it just might change someone's life. And again, like we started off with, Joe, I just love the spirit of it, that take command, that we can take command at all three of those levels, and that we can own it, and we can drive, and we can live lives of purpose with people who help us thrive. Bottom line.
That's it. You got it. Thank you. You ready to go on the speaking circuit with me?
I'll be your warm-up act.
Yeah, no, I love it. You are articulate. You have this down, and great. We need to get more people out just talk, because I do think, in all seriousness, there's an opportunity for each of us to inspire other people. So the mindset we have is contagious, whether it's whether for good or not for good. So why not inspire people to the good, to the opportunity, to the best part of themselves that we can, versus being that person that no one wants to be around because they're just so negative all the time.
Exactly. As we wind down, I always ask listeners what they're listening to, streaming, what they're reading, what's something that's caught your eye that might, other than take command, what's something that's caught your eye in recent times that you'd want listeners to know about? I mean, you've interviewed some incredible authors on your podcast, but what's caught your attention lately? And I'm going to give you one of mine too, which I think you might enjoy.
Someone I had on my podcast who I've really enjoyed getting to know and has really been sparking a lot of thoughts for me and development for me is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Maybe a few months ago, I read The Earned Life, which is his newest book. I am rereading that again because it's the kind of book that's so valuable that it's not just one you read once, but I'm reading it and highlighting it. I have it on some books that I really love. I'll have on Audible. I might even, I'll have an Audible and I'll have a hard copy. I might even have it on Kindle just so that the Audible and the Kindle sync together. But, so much of what he is talking about, it goes to what we're saying here. What is an earned life, and what are the things that we need to do, and how do you avoid regret, and how do you really maximize that intentionality? But he's also just a human being. I've gotten to know Marshall more recently personally, and had some good conversations with him. In fact, he's got a new documentary that was out that I watched the other night, and it's on Amazon Prime. Very much worth it.
Okay.
And it just, and things that inspire me to want to be even better, it kind of keep me sharp. And I find Marshall to be one of those people.
Well, he has one of my favorite book titles of all time. The What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great title. Great book. Yeah.
Very true, very true. So I, have spent years and years and years really only listening to nonfiction. And so for the first time, I read a book. This was a recommendation of a guest, John Antonakis, and there was a book. It was called Stoner, and it was about a professor in a school in Missouri, and this gentleman's life. Joe, it was one of the most boring books I've ever read. Actually, I listened to it, but I found myself sitting in the garage waiting to see what happened next.
Wait, it was boring? It was
Yes.
boring, but you were waiting to see what happened next?
The writing in this book was so incredibly beautiful. The picture that this author was painting with words was just awesome. So I kind of started to fall in love a little bit with fiction. And so I just finished one called All the Light You Cannot See. And it was by a gentleman named Anthony Doerr. It's a book that takes place during World War II, and you have a young girl in France, and you have a young soldier from Germany, and their paths converge. And like Stoner, and it was called Stoner because that was the last name of the professor. But in this book, the writing is just so beautiful, and the picture that is painted with words, it's well worth a listen. It's well worth a read. All the Light We Cannot See. Just incredible.
Thanks for suggesting that. I know I've got so many Audible credits left over. They keep coming every month, and I can't keep up. So I'll check that one out.
Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely wonderful. And it's one of those where it's bouncing around in timelines, so it takes a little bit of time to get used to. But oof, I was captivated. And now I've moved on, like I was saying before, to Rick Rubin, The Creative Act. So that's kind of an interesting switch from Take Command. Everyone's creative in their own way, and he's trying to promote that. So that's been a fun listen as well. Okay, sir. Until next time, thank you very, very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, bye-bye. I would just love to have Joe Hart travel around with me. And when I need it, whisper in my ears, take command, Scott. And in a way, he is with me, because those two words are two words that are going to stick with me. And I had a great conversation with Tony Middlebrooks, episode 150, and that episode was called Stay Curious. And I started to go into some quotes that have really, really, really stuck with me over the course of these conversations. And those two words will stick with me. Take command, drive, go. Obviously, there are situations where we can't, but there are a number of situations in our lives where we can take command. And there are so many stories over the course of these podcast episodes where individuals have taken command. I think of Sarah Safari. If you haven't listened to those two episodes, please do. So take command. Joe, it's an incredible book, but those two words sum up that book beautifully. The practical wisdom, everyone. Take command. Have a great day. As always, thank you so much for checking in. You have just finished another episode of Practical Wisdom for Leaders with Scott Allen. To contact me, visit scottjallen.net or send me a note at scott@scottjallen.net. I'm also on LinkedIn, so let's connect. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And now here's my daughter, Emily, with the outro.
You've been listening to Phronesis, Practical Wisdom with Scott Allen.